I mean, a lot of people welcoming this move, a lot of people very angry and upset about it. Piers Morgan, my to-be colleague, very upset about this, saying that people who have not got themselves jabbed, who work in healthcare, are in the wrong job, are they?
Oh, no, not at all. And I remember chatting to Piers about this, and I offered him a job in social care if he wanted to, because there's nobody going to be able to do these roles. I think yesterday's announcement is very welcome across the board, but it's also bittersweet for the 40,000 plus estimated care staff that we lost in November last year. And it's going to be difficult for the sector to really come back from that. I'm pleased that this discussion's happening. I'm pleased that we're talking more about supportive conversations rather than forcing people's hands. But it just adds another blow to the professional identity of social care workers in
Yeah.
this country. We can't risk losing NHS staff, but it's fine to lose 40,000 care
Yes,
home
and that isn't
workers.
interesting, even though, of course, the knock-on effect of social care staff being lost was a big impact on the NHS because, of course, we had that, and it's a horrible phrase, but bed blocking of elderly patients in the NHS no longer needing medical care, couldn't be moved into a care home or moved back to a care home because they'd lost a load of staff. They simply didn't have the number of staff to care for people, even, legally, let alone, actually what they needed. So they're just sitting there using up beds which could be used by people who could be needing NHS treatment. This was obvious to an awful lot of us. Now, I have to say, I sat on the fence on this issue for quite some time because I really did struggle with the idea that someone, having had an aunt in a care home for a year during the pandemic, and she was in hospital for 3 months as well, the idea that someone would be caring for her who could put her at greater risk. But that argument kind of went out of the window when we had Delta, which was more transmissible even if you were jabbed, and certainly with Omicron at that point. I mean, we've got a couple of members of the cabinet who've been treble jabbed, who've now got COVID. Liz Truss and Nazim Zahawi as well, and we've seen Keir Starmer and everyone. So the argument on transmission really wasn't very strong at all. But also the other argument was crucially the fact that there are two different harms here. Could there be a slightly greater risk for patients who are being treated by someone who's double jabbed? Again, not proven, but could there be, up against the absolutely certain extra risk of patients not being treated at all because there weren't enough staff?
For me, the problem was that the mandate of the vaccine was being touted as the be all and end all of this was going to solve the situation. And I think once that becomes the topic of conversation, complacency sets in, and we're lulled into this false sense of security. And my argument throughout the whole of the COVID-19 pandemic within social care is that being COVID safe isn't about being safe from the virus itself. It's about being safe from everything. So the risk of isolation, the risk of loneliness. There are
Yeah.
homes that have since shut down since November. So people are being moved from their safe places, their safe environments into other environments, which is detrimentally going to affect their health. So if this consultation within government does happen and it is agreed to roll back the mandate of the vaccine, I have a lot of questions of
Yeah.
whether people who have lost their jobs are going to have a legal voice and a legal
Well,
right. People who
indeed.
have been living in care are going to have a legal right for this is detrimentally affected my health. My care home I lived in shut down because of this, and my loved one died as a
Yeah.
result. So are we going to have a legal voice and a legal right in this?
And that's it. The repercussions of this are they're huge for individuals, but it's an awful lot of individuals. I think that's perhaps something we became much more aware of during the pandemic. Quite how many people are in this situation.
Yeah.
And again, NHS staff they were due to have had their first jab to fulfil that 1st of April deadline to have 2 jabs by this Thursday. Hence the announcement yesterday. As you say, that deadline for social care staff was last November. A lot of those people lost their jobs. Do you think that those jobs should be offered back to them if they haven't already been replaced? Do you think many of those people will actually want to go back to social care?
Problem. I think we've burnt bridges now. I think these jobs should, obviously be welcomed back. They should be opened up for people to rejoin the sector. However, if I was a person like that, and I would urge people to think against these thoughts, I would think, well, I'm obviously not respected enough to be in the sector. I was a hero one day
Yeah.
and then overnight vilified. So why would I want to go back into the sector? It's not the sector's fault, but the government have brought this on. And with the consultation, the deadline is the 3rd, so this Thursday. If they decide that actually the best thing to do is to move forwards with mandating the vaccine, numerous employers will now have missed the dismissal deadline for people, and people will have missed having the vaccine on the 3rd
Yeah.
in time for the 1st of April. So will there be a move on that date moving forwards? I would also love to know how much this has cost the public.
Yeah.
because social care is on its knees financially at the minute, and I would love to know how many millions have been spent on this for it to just be rolled back and the effects actually be more damaging to the system than
Yeah,
protective.
as you say, I mean, change of policy. Let's all move on. No, we don't just move on. Thousands, tens of thousands of people affected, their lives disrupted. Not just those social care workers and NHS workers, but also the residents as well. And the repercussions will be huge.